We have the boops.
Should be sending out data
Yes. Got data bits.
Things are going out. We're lighting it up. We're saying hello to everyone.
Yes, we're live.
Unfortunate to be
Hello.
in the sound of our voice. Hey everyone, how's it going? We're getting ready for another weekly, daily Wednesdays. Big week. Everybody who has a 1904 has a release,
Hey.
man. We got 1904
Yes.
this, 1904 that.
Yes. And other distros as well with new releases.
It's like, oh yeah, all of those Ubuntu-based distros, all of a sudden they all are talking about betas and new releases. Oh, okay.
I'm surprised
chess man.
Microsoft didn't have a 1904, man. Like, oh,
Yeah.
sure, guys.
Well, the WSL version of Ubuntu that they have is the LTS, right? If you want to install a newer version, you can.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Can you imagine it? Microsoft Windows LTS.
Yeah. That's...
Great. It's the future.
Isn't that just called Windows 10?
Oh, man, I think that's called like,
Yeah.
whatever. Windows 10 is a rolling distribution when you think about it, man.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the last version of Windows. Okay, I'll wait and see about that.
It probably will be, man.
Hello, Arthur.
Arthur in love.
The newest update for Windows 10 breaks all the antiviruses, like the third-party ones. One of which we happen to be running at work because we have a contract with Sophos. So,
Hey, Steve husband.
yeah.
Ah.
Let's just say those updates are going to be frozen all across the country for a little bit longer.
Aw. Hi, nephew Arthurin.
It's Windows, though. I mean, in a workplace, that would terrify me to have to be responsible for it in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that as like genuine, like blind hatred for Microsoft. I'm saying that as like,
It's
I
just-
would not want to deal with that.
Yeah. It's a drag.
Actually, unless an update comes down that breaks something, Windows has been sort of behaving. Right now, what we've been dealing with is because Office 365 has been hit with a particularly smart phishing attempt, which doesn't just send a message that resembles something that looks like a file has been shared on someone's OneDrive, and you got the email saying that you have access to it. No. It's they hijack people's accounts. They put a file on their OneDrive without, raising any red flags. They create a couple of rules in their Outlook, and then they share the link. They actually set up a script to share the link at a later date. So even if people change their password and whatnot after that, it still sends out that command that shares the file with everyone in that contact list.
Wow.
Which, in the case of the NHS, is the whole of the NHS.
Yes, everyone is tied in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we have the same issues on campus too, because it's all tied to it's a state government, so it's all tied in. It's bad.
So you need Stalin, Vin, come in and set it up. We're going to just strip HTML. Done. No attachments. Done. But no.
Aw.
You got a problem
That's
with
the
it.
thing. It's a legitimate email because it is a file that, for all intents and purposes, that person shared. And the file
Yeah.
then leads people to something that looks like the Office 365 login, and that's what we now have to tell people. That's fake. Don't log in.
They could have fun. I'm gonna
Justin.
look at him and be like, hey, are you familiar with Pine? Because you're using Pine now. What's up, beautiful people? Arthurian, we're still figuring out how the Threadbooper is going to treat. This is only its second real outing.
Yes.
Remains to be seen. Saturday was a shakedown test. It didn't explode. How'd that go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did very well.
Except for the sound going
issue.
weird.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons we're not in 1904 right now.
Yes.
Plain text emails, awesome.
Yeah, but even if you strip down that email and you make it go plain text, it is legitimate. It is a file that's being shared from that person's OneDrive. And the file has a link saying in order to open this document, you need to log in. And it gives you a link. And the link actually looks like the Office 365 login page. And people log in, not looking at the URL that is very clearly not a Microsoft official URL, and people should know better.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Yeah.
Man. Comes down to trading.
And the thing is, we had an instance of a person, like one of the new starters here in Cambridge that did it. But we cut it pretty soon. It's like, change your password right now before they have a chance to drop in the script and drop in the file into your OneDrive. And we cut it on time, but some other people in some other regions did not. So now we have all of the spam because people, in wanting to be, helpful, what do? They let the service desk know that they got some phishing email, some spam. And how do they do that? They spam the service desk by forwarding the malicious message to the service desk.
Yes.
Kudos. And I've already railed against that, and my boss is like, yeah, but we need people to tell us. We don't need people to do the spammers' work for them. We don't need people to be spammers and phishers and forward their malicious email to the service desk. But we need people to... Fine, whatever.
Wow.
He's normally a happy boy. Just don't get him started with that email.
Oh.
No, it's just all they needed to do was change the wording.
I love that. That was I haven't got it all out of my system yet. Give me a minute.
They just need to change the wording on like the intranet portal that everyone uses in HE. They just need to change the wording from, instead of letting the service desk know, to specifically say, take a screenshot, instead of forward the stupid email.
Yeah. There you go. That was something simple they could have done.
Yeah. It's like, take a screenshot of the email, send the screenshot and only the screenshot to the service desk. That's cool.
I don't know, Justin, you were doing 4.4. What were you feeding that? Like 1.5 volts?
Okay, Linda, we'll see you soon.
Did you try... Well, I guess if you're saying that the motherboard is toast, I'm guessing you tried all of the unplug everything, let it sit, like take out the battery.
Oh, that's when everyone gets religious, when you're down to the CMOS battery. You're like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pushing 1.48 on the V core with the Ryzen's, that's a bit much.
The 1700 could reliably, I could clock that at 3.7 at 1.38.
Yeah.
And it would behave. Like, yeah.
I could, well, I have run this 1600 at the turbo, And even with just the default voltage, it holds 3.6 without even batting an eye. But I found out that if I leave it stock, the turbo actually turbos up to 3.8 most of the time. So I let it be stock.
Yeah, for most of the time on the single course, this thing just it's a strange flex. It's not doing anything, but it's like, hey man, I can run at 4.2. I'll just chill it out, not do anything. Like, stop doing that. Wasting power.
Yeah. Okay, so the processor survived.
All right.
So yeah, you probably did fry that motherboard.
Well, the one thing I did for this board was I put that 140 millimeter fan at the top of the case, blowing directly over the VRMs.
Yeah.
All 16 of them.
Yeah, this one's got a little, it's like some metal fins over the VRMs. And I made sure that the two fans that I mounted on the top of this case, when they pull the hair up, one of them is right in front of those VRMs, so does its job.
When I was unpacking the motherboard, I saw this like mounting thing. I'm like, you're gonna make me. All right, I admit defeat, ladies and gentlemen. I did have to look in the manual, but not for that. I put that together. I'll tell you what I had to look in the manual for in a minute, but it was like a weird, like, this is a sex toy? What's going on here, man? And it finally clicked what I was putting motherboard in. It has a mount to mount a fan over the VRM.
Yeah.
It was like, you know what, MSI? I want to take that as a hint.
Yeah.
Those puppies get hot.
The what I had to look for, and I consider having to read the motherboard manual, me admitting defeat at this point in my life. I'm an old man. I built a lot of computers. To find the power switch, HDD LEDs, and reset, because they were sandwiched right next to a USB 2 header, in line with it. Like, no space.
Yeah.
This one does the same thing. It's like all around the bottom, it's like, that's just pins.
Wasn't on the
this
bottom.
is USB,
like,
this is audio.
Man, I looked at that hard. I was searching my non-existent soul. I was like, where's this at? It was bugging me.
Huh. Yeah, I'm not used to seeing that on a workstation motherboard. Usually they're separate, way on the other side of the USB connectors.
Well, one of the USB 3s, the USB Cs, the USB 2s. It's packed. And that's also right next to the liquid nitrogen jumper, which I'm also not used to seeing on workstation motherboards.
Yes. God, I still have all the jumpers memorized. JP7, 8, 9. I still have all that stuff memorized.
I haven't seen a motherboard
I remember
with
the
actual
positions
jumper.
to set primary slave and primary master.
Oh, yeah.
That's with no jumper.
Well, I remember when CS Select came out, you're like, oh.
Oh, yeah. That was a thing.
That was a big improvement of trying to figure out where I had to put the Terminator on the SCSI. Click that in.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 4.3 on Ryzen. Oof. You're brave, soldier. That's all I'll say. I admire your bravery. Braver than me.
And supposedly, that's what the Ryzen 3000s are going to bring. It's the clock speeds.
Yeah. Going up. Yay.
And I really do hope that the 3700X is, as they promise, it'll turbo to 5, because, yes.
You don't want it to be too good, though.
I think, at this point, I think AMD deserves good.
Then it'll get the too good pricing.
Yes. And one thing is for sure, they still won't beat Intel in single-threaded performance. There's no way. So people
I
will
think they
always
can
have
close the gap
that.
with 7 nanometer, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Supposedly it's another 12 or 13% increase in IPC. So yeah. That's what not Haswell, the one before that, Sandy Bridge, Ivy Bridge, one of them. Right around that IPC level.
Mm.
But yeah, no, the Ryzen, like the very first generation, was a pretty big jump from the FX series. So now they just gotta do a little bit more catch up.
Linux Skinner. I thought you said CBS, not OBS.
Yeah. Well, AMD is definitely they're capable of making really good silicon that can be pushed high. Like whatever, that's marketing, reading just about the Threadripper stuff. Like, we only put the top 5%. Then I got this thing and I started just jacking up the clock to see what I was like, yeah, you're not kidding, are you? You can put this thing at 4.5, it's like, meh. I mean, it does 4.2 stock, just whatever, don't care. It's not getting warm. Draws a lot of power though. But
Yeah.
if we get a high-end Ryzen part that is like genuinely trading blows, it will be priced competitively, but it won't be insta-buy competitive.
If it's less than 400 pounds, I'm buying it. If it's more,
$399.99.
yeah, $399. Yeah, that's probably what it's going to be. Which is why I'm not going anywhere near the 3850.
Oh, Lord.
But hey,
Oh, nice picture, Matthew.
He's unlocked it. Super hipster level 3. I didn't think it was still possible in the modern day.
He's even got a bubble vest thing. No.
What you have to realize, ladies and gentlemen, Jill lives in LA, so people carrying around an axe doesn't even make her blink. Bubble vest. Like, whoa.
yeah, no, the axe
Oh, I
on the
didn't see
shoulder.
the axe.
Of course,
my gosh,
it's so
that was-
natural. You're just like, an axe.
That was funny, Matthew. Actually, no, I've seen it. I like that outfit, Matthew. Oh, that's really that is cute.
Yeah. My upgrade path is changed now. We've bought into the Threadripper platform, so hopefully when Ryzen 3 comes out, I still won't have to upgrade anything for a long time, period.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Threadripper, the Zen 2 Threadrippers will be out later in the year.
Yeah, but see, even like the 2990 WX, it's actually like $1,200, man.
Yeah. It's not 1,700.
I could go out, play the lottery, win the lottery, and be like, I'm not spending $1,200 for a processor. That's not how I roll.
I mean, when you compare the like the 2990X to the Xeon that it's fighting up against, you can pay either
Oh yeah, comparatively.
$3,000?
Yeah, 100%.
or 1,200. It's like, okay, 1,200 seems good.
If I was putting that together, I mean, they are priced. Even Epic is priced very, very well in the server market. But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
for personal use, that's a little too low.
Yeah.
That's
I know.
Yeah, $1,200 for a desktop CPU. Even with the workstation workload, yeah.
we could barely justify the thread. And we got the baby Threadripper, ladies and gentlemen. We got the one that qualifies. I know it was like, what about the 1900X? I'm like, You just bought that to
That's
put
an
in the motherboard.
1800X.
You bought that
It's
to
just
put
an
in the motherboard.
1800X.
I mean, I'm sure you can clock the snot out of it, but
Mug today, everyone, is my Firefox mug. Although we're not talking about Firefox in today's show, but
oh, you got a GitHub mug?
GitLab.
GitLab. I'm sorry.
GitLab. Yes. GitLab. Here we go. It's a GitLab mug.
Don't you stab your eyes out when you drink from that?
Yeah, I was looking at that. I guess you have to drink from in between the ears. It's like, okay.
Yes.
It's like, no, I'm capable of feeding, and I get that when I'm drinking from my Doctor Who tea mug. And I'm like, oh, don't you spill? I'm like, no. I mean, it's square, but
Yeah.
you can work around things.
Yes. Yeah, this the points are just in the front, so I drink from the back.
Yeah, that's how they go into your eyes, because
Yeah, that's how you saw them. Very careful.
I'd be down with that. I think at maximum, I wouldn't drink from that if I was riding a shotgun in a car with me.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, no. Going over a bump.
All right, then.
Brake
Does
check,
Ven-
baby. Wait,
Then go over those curves. Curbs.
curbs?
Yes.
Spell that. We're playing the LGC spelling bee. Curbs?
Curb.
There's
C-U-R-B.
like 7 E's in that.
Curbs.
Maybe a letter 7. I'm not sure.
No, your Pantera's too low to go over those curbs.
Pantera's not really that low. Like, it's a 70s sports car. It's not.
Yeah, it's not right on the floor. Yeah, there are a few inches
Plus,
of
I
leeway.
got regular tires on it too, man. I don't have like the low
okay.
profile.
Yeah.
Period correct, or as I like to call them, cheap.
I've only seen the low profile ones, but I know it normally is a little higher on the regular tires.
Yeah, everybody thinks they're clever, right? Up to the point they stab themselves in the eyes when they're eating Cheetos.
I've never
See,
done
I've
that.
missed my mouth, but not by that much.
Yeah.
Good for playing with Python. There's a lot of things killing your internet, man. Pretty bold to limit it to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd straight up like mail you a thumb drive. I really do need to order one of those NVMe USB adapters.
USB to NVMe?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah. You said the other way around, but yeah, sure.
What world are you living in where you didn't know what I meant?
I just wanted to clarify that.
Listen, man, you do not understand the advanced technology existing inside of a Threadripper
Because
X399
what you
motherboard.
said, the image that came into my mind is like, how would that work? It's like you plug in something to
Yeah.
the M.2 port in the motherboard, then it gives you 2 USB outs? What?
Almost willing to bet something that retarded exists.
It probably exists,
Oh,
yes.
you bet it does, yeah.
Yeah.
You spend enough time on eBay and you believe everything.
That was something I wanted to do for the 3 NVMe drives and just put like 3 Wi-Fi cards in there. But yes, finally. It's 5,400 RPM drives.
Yeah.
Yeah, you turn that NVMe into like 2 Type-Cs and then you connect like a Type-C hub that gives you like 4 Type A's each one, and you plug a 54 RPM external USB 2.0 hard
You
drive
come
to
out
them.
the NVMe, maybe USB 3, then you get USB 3 to SATA, then you get an IDE to SATA.
Oh, Lord.
And all of a sudden, your access latency goes from like 3 milliseconds to a second.
And you can put a SCSI 50 pin on there.
I don't have any adapters that... my adapter situation's pretty decent. I don't have anything... I have some USB Type-C to Type-C, because that's not confusing as it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have the Type-C port that's currently at the back of my motherboard not doing anything. And this motherboard also has 2 USB 3.1 Type-A ports.
Ah.
You can tell that they're not USB 3 because instead of blue, they're cyan.
They're
Red,
cyan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know anything blue. Or red. Like, Jesus, I don't know how many USB ports. Which doesn't matter. I can use exactly one of them for a video encoder. And that entire bus is gone.
Yep.
Loophole
Yeah, no,
kids. Buy a
that's,
video card with a USB Type-C on it and use that.
The tests I've done with little USB capture cards, like, yeah, plugged into the 3.1s. Perfect.
Yep. You can, it can be tricksy. I think I can get away with one more if I use the USB 3.1 header on the front, because I think that's tied directly into the chipset. Those are not running over PCIe right now.
Yeah, no, if you plug into the front ones, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I'll play around with it. Currently, we have one on the USB 3.1 bus, and we have one on the USB-C Gen 2 bus, and we have one on the PCI Express bus via video card.
Yeah. Yeah, it was exactly because I had that Type-C at the back there not doing anything that I bought this thing on eBay that no one bid on. It's a Dell Type-C dock.
Okay.
Oh. Nice.
And basically it's got another Type-C connector there. And it's got a bunch of stuff, extra power going in here. Yeah. There's a
Oh, that's
big
nice.
ass extension card right here. It was like 15 pounds and no one bid on it. It's like, it's only got like
That's
2
yours.
minutes left and no one's bid on it. Okay, I'll bid.
Yeah, because something like that would probably cost you 60, 70 bucks.
Used, they go for around 80.
80.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely a better way to go into it than the... Wait a minute, I won that?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
It's like, oh, it's almost over. 0 bids. What the hell? Okay. 15 pounds. Yeah, whatever. And it came with a power supply. The power supply works. It's one of those Dell 130 watt power supplies. So I'm pretty sure if I get one of those embedded motherboards, I can power it off that.
Oh, did everyone catch Nintendo being Nintendo? Couple of days ago when they finally, after like 7 years of work, the guy released his Commodore 64.
Oh, yeah.
Super
And then
Mario
they
Bros.
forced them to take it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only
Yeah.
in true Nintendo fashion. This is like the 3rd time they've waited until a project is like done. Not
Yeah.
a peep throughout the involved. You're like, oh, it's out now? Yeah. Boom. No.
Oh,
Oh,
I
it's
know.
a thing now. Okay, so we can sue the thing now. Nice.
Cease and desist, man. They did it with ASMR too.
Yeah.
Which was in development for years, and
Yep.
I was
Yeah.
like, hey, it's done. It was like, go away.
Yeah, Uncle Nintendo is a bit suey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll get rolling in the 3-minute mark.
Okay.
Get a show done. Quit screwing around.
USB 2.0 and external graphics go together like me and Fen IRL.
Everything might explode. Unlikely, but it might. I'm just giving everyone
Okay.
fair warning.
There
Hey,
was an
empty.
external. There was an external graphics adapter that you could use with laptops that it would connect to an M.2 or a mini PCI port on a laptop, and you'd get like
Yeah.
one PCIe lane.
Oh,
with a
yeah,
full
yeah,
size PCIe port too. It's like, oh, that's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen those adapters. I have one of the ones that uses the PCMSIA slot.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. And Patrick gave me one too.
Oh yeah, display link. We use we have those display link docks at work, and I tried to get one of those running on Linux. It does work, but the display link driver, even on Ubuntu, it's not good. It's like it cuts your frame rate. If you're using compositing, you get like 1 frame rate on the external monitors, like 1 FPS at most.
Oh my. Horrible.
And you have to play around with the mode setting on, like, most of the laptops at work are Intel GPU, integrated GPU laptops, so you have to play with the mode setting on the Intel drivers, and then you can sort of get something that resembles 60 hertz. But the moment you drag a window, it's like, oh look, tearing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just like a little bit at the bottom that tears as you're dragging the window. No, it's you
Yeah, it's
get
like
like
the
3
whole
different
thing.
levels of tearing.
Oh, calm down.
Oh.
I'm not used to it anymore. It's been the first 20 years of Linux. It's like, I'm used to tearing. That's the thing. I live with this. It's part of my life.
Yeah,
deal with it
it's
now.
one of the annoying things that it took KD a long time to fix was tearing. He basically had to force enable triple buffering.
Let me grab a fantastic refill, and we're going to do a show, everyone.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me tear out of here. Dad joke.
Well, it does. They do have. Well, it's not theirs officially, but there is a Fedora driver somewhere on GitHub. Never really played with that, so I don't know.
Yeah, Arthur, and FreeSync is really nice. I do enjoy it.
You don't need Radeon graphics cards anymore.
Yeah.
NVIDIA went fine. You don't want to pay the G-Sync tax? There you go. There's FreeSync for you. And it works. It
does,
works just
yeah.
fine on Linux. It's like, but if I go above 60, then the frame rate is locked at 60. But if I just, instead of having that, I use the forceful composition pipeline, I can have a higher frame rate, which means less input lag, even if I can't see it. But it's less input lag, so I'll take the composition pipeline. Thank you.
Yeah. I have tested it on my AOC, and it worked pretty well. It looked really nice and smooth. But I'm just so used to tearing with my 3-monitor rig setup. I'm just used to it. But I have my AMD GPU set up on this other monitor, and it does run nicely.
The only game that I saw that actually used like the FreeSync stuff was Fallout 4 at UHD. That it fluctuated a lot between 45 and 60 FPS. So it's like, oh, it's smooth now.
Yay.
Yeah, force composition pipeline will lower your performance, but you got a 1070, man.
It will cut down on your performance, but there is no tearing. Even if you disable the compositor, unless you do something really weird to force any and all kind of compositing or VSync off, then yeah, you get no tearing.
Well, I'll have you know, Pedro, I was getting 112, and with that on, I'm only getting 110.5, man. It's stupid.
It's so small.
Worthless.
You don't...
I actually saw an argument like that on the KDE forums once.
Oh, boy.
It's like, oh, but if I enabled this, then my desktop frame rate goes from 300 down to like 220. You don't have a 220 hertz display. What's your problem?
I can feel it in my bones, Pedro. No, man, it's all
like,
about
unless
being
it cuts it down
listen,
to below 60.
everybody wants to get everything like that. I mean, it's not my thing. I get it. I understand it. Same thing with like delitting your CPU, taking off your integrated heat spreader to get those extra 2 to 3 degrees. It was like, no, you can get 6, man. And that makes it worth it. It's like, not for me, but hey, man, I can respect it. I'm not judging.
I don't know. If my CPU is with 100% load on all cores, falling way short of 60 Celsius, I'm good. I had a Core 2 Duo that idled at like 50 back in the day, so it's fine.
Okay, let's give this a shot. All right. Let's get dangerous.
Okay.
Legitimately waiting for something to blow up after I just did that.
Oh, okay.
Check. Okay, that appears to be working. And let's record. All right. Adventure time. Let's do a show.
Yes.
Yay.
Welcome back to Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays, where we can sit back, relax, take that midweek break, and talk about all the fun things we found going on in Linux, open source, floss, all that jazz, all that brilliant stuff. I'm Vince Stone. That is one Joe Bryan, and joined every week by Pedro Mateus, and you joining us live. Thanks for doing that. It's kind of neat. What's up, everyone? We've had a big week. A lot of people have been doing a lot of stuff. Jill?
Yes, definitely. Besides all our installs for the show. It's awesome. Oh boy. So I just got my diversity scholarship for the Open Source Summit in San Diego for this August. And I'll probably do some more interviews for LWW like I did at Scale. So that'll be really cool.
You're going to chase them down?
Yes, I'm going to chase some people down. And I'm having fun testing my Acer 43-inch 4K computer monitor on my workbench. And now to start preparing to bring it in here and put it on this desk. And yes, it's going to go on the desk.
Okay. Because we were promised it would go on the desk, so we're still waiting.
I was told it was going to go on the desk. let me behind the scenes on that. And Jill's like, we're gonna put it on a 1, and Steve's like, it's going on the desk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pedro, what's new with you, my man?
Not much really. I signed up
Mhm.
for the local surgery here, and I had to go in for a consultation, and they asked me a bunch of questions. It's like, well, that's quite the history. So, when exactly do you think you'll get cancer? I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, but both your grandparents had cancer. It's like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. So yeah, no, it's apparently my fate has been decided, and that was only like a minor consultation that I had to go in and answer a couple of questions.
Hmm.
Well, in slightly less morbid news,
Yeah. Oh.
no, I've been trying to. We got the Threadripper, the thread booping system together, the little baby thread booper, and been trying to break it. And all I can say to that is R.I.P. my power bill. That
Yes.
pretty interesting. It's working out so far. It's pretty cool. Having a good time with it. And more on that at 11. Let's just get right into it, because what is it? Disco Dingo? Is that it? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yay! I got it right. I was going to look at the show notes, and I've been calling it like weird stuff, like
Yeah.
polyester dogo or stuff like that.
Polyester Doko.
This was
Dank
kind of,
doggo.
this was kind of the big news. 1904 from Canonical is out, and yes, it is Disco Dingo, and this is 1904. It's an LTS. No, it's not. It will be supported for 9 months. That is up until January 2020. If you need long-term support, do what I did. Go back and reinstall 1804 LTS. It does ship with kernel 5.0. That's great. Something everyone was happy about. NVIDIA drivers that were made in this century were shipped. That's right.
Yes.
It's like, wow, 418 drivers. That's brilliant. They did still forget, for reasons unknown to me, bizarre moon reasons, FFmpeg is not compiled with NV encode, which caused me to love it so much. Outside of that and some issues with the audio setup we have here, I kind of went screeching back and installed Ubuntu 1804 to make everything nice and happy. Joel, what type of experience? Now, I will say it's running on your box here, the Optiplex.
Oh, okay.
And isn't really outside of it. Completely forgot how to internet when I first installed it, but I just went back in the network and set everything back up.
Oh, cool. Well, I installed it on one of my rigs, and it worked beautifully. I did a nuke and pave install. And as we have been talking about the last few months, the much improved GNOME Desktop 3.32 ships with Disco Dingo, which brings lots of performance improvements, bug fixes, and overall is a lot faster. Everyone has been talking about it on the social medias, how much faster it is now with GNOME, the new GNOME. And the latest development release, Mesa 19, also comes pre-installed, which is really wonderful. So
Yeah.
good on them.
And you also mentioned in the notes that the NVIDIA drivers can now be selected and installed during installation, which is an option that should have been there for a long time.
Yes.
But they finally have it, so good on them for that. And I do have the ThinkPad X230, which has been running the 1904, just a standard edition with GNOME and everything else since the first beta was released. And I've been seeing the improvements, and I feel like at this point, since that first beta came out, and now that I've run the final updates and everything is up to release, I gave GNOME a fair shot. I gave it more than one chance to change my mind, and it's still a bloated, buggy mess. That's it.
Well, I would let you get away with that if you weren't running KDE.
Well, I'm running KDE here, but this box has got enough juice to run that and far more.
Apparently. I'm going to say this. 1904 seems like a very good, well-received release. If you're an end user, desktop user, go try it. Do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be your thing. outside of that, what do we have? Oh, that's not we got a bunch of 1904 this week.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, we
Ubuntu
do.
got an update, so everything that's based on it got one
Well,
too.
let's keep rolling with it.
Yeah. So Pop! OS 1904 is available for download with all the improvements and updates of the Ubuntu 19.04 release, but with some wonderful new features. It's just, this is wonderful. It's not only beautiful, but has become one of the best distros to game on because of its thoughtful innovations to classic Ubuntu. And what's really awesome is they have two separate ISOs that you can download, one AMD Intel for the latest Mesa graphics drivers, and one NVIDIA, which includes the proprietary NVIDIA 418 graphics drivers. And Lutris and GameHub are now available in the Pop Shop, and the most important one being Lutris for me, of course. And there was something actually really amazing that I did last night. Using the live USB of Pop! OS 19.04 NVIDIA Edition, I was able to game spanning 3 monitors with games I downloaded from Steam and Lutris with full NVIDIA hardware acceleration. Out of the box on a freaking live USB.
Until you run out of RAM.
yeah, until I ran out of RAM. Well, what I did is I hooked up another USB flash drive, installed the games on that.
Oh, okay.
So the Talos Principle running Vulkan and Unreal Tournament and Lutris were tested, as well as Proton. And this is just so wonderful because for years, I've tried to run Steam with the NVIDIA drivers on live CDs and live USBs, and it was horrible. You had to go in and edit all the configs. Even when you install, Ubuntu, you have to still go in and edit configs to get multi-monitor gaming. And just way to go, System 76. From now on, my base Ubuntu install will be Pop! OS, because Pop! OS is the best OS.
You don't get to say that until I see that you went and bought some wood panel stickers.
Yes! I got my System 76 shirt
we need
here.
to get Jill like a, I don't know, curly hairdo. And get her to speak in a French accent, a really heavy one, because that sounded like Strider just now. It's like, oh yeah, Pop! OS is the best. And since both Jill and Strider seem to like the distro so much, I'm obligated to remind everyone that they have released a distro that could have just been, a PPA, but they did that too. And to be fair, they did do a good job with offering the different ISOs, so there's that. I'll give them that.
Yes.
They did a good job. I like what System 76 is doing with trying to an all-in-one integrated solution, and it makes sense. If you're doing the hardware, do their bit of software, do their custom bits to it, and most importantly, what they've done is made it available to everyone. So
Yes.
that's brilliant. Isn't that right, Apple? Huh?
Right? They'll still try and take it to court if you install macOS on a non-Apple device.
So let's get to the heart, the genesis of all this canonical nonsense.
We've talked about Ubuntu and its derivatives. Now let's talk about Debian, because there are some new features coming to Debian 10 Buster. And currently, what is it? Jesse? Not Jesse. I can't remember which is the one that's currently out. But yeah, Debian Buster is the next one up. And it has the release schedule, doesn't have a defined date. And they say that it will be released once the core is stable that they're happy enough with.
They have an update to your favorite desktop.
Yes, they have updated GNOME to 3.30, which is only like one major version behind what Ubuntu is putting out right now, so that's significant.
Yes.
They also have kernel 4.19, which is a very good call for a kernel, because when I was setting up the Steam box and I was having those issues with mode setting and not being able to boot, kernel 4.19 was the one that actually fixed that. So that is the minimum kernel that you want to be running if you have a Ryzen APU. Yeah, very good. I would raise an issue. It's like AppArmor. I mean, I'm no fan of SE Linux. Hi, NSA. But AppArmor, really?
I'm going to say this. I love number 8 because I'm going to I'm going to truck this out. Python 2 is dead. Long live Python 3. Like, okay,
Yes.
that's Debian saying that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, it is proper
Yes.
dead now.
Let
Dead,
it go.
buried.
Joe,
Yeah, so it was actually, this is an upgrade from Debian Stretch, which was is still one of my favorite distros of all time, of course, Debian. But yeah, as Pedro was saying, it's a faster GNOME desktop 3.30. But what's really awesome is the packages moved from library GTK2 to library GTK3. And now GStreamer 1.0 package kit for automatic codec installation for playing movies is installed by default, which is really wonderful. And something significant, the old OpenJDK 8.0 is finally being replaced by OpenJDK 11.0. So that actually was really big news. So this is a major, Debian Buster's a major release.
So you can play Minecraft on just a default install of Debian now. Cool.
man. They must have had a sale on Haterade at Tesco, right?
Yeah.
Couldn't help yourself. You got a coupon? New life, new things, new distros, but end of the line for one. That's been around for quite a few minutes.
Yeah, this is sad. So, oh noes. Fermilab is discontinuing Scientific Linux and moving to CentOS 8 so they can unify their computing platform with other collaborating labs and institutions, which does make sense, but literally CentOS sense. But anyways, it is still really sad. But Fermilab is going to continue to support Scientific Linux 6 and 7 to the end of their release cycles. And I was just, this was really sad news. I remember them being at scale many moons ago, and they were really heavily used in the scientific sector and also in space and NASA as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one, they actually specifically called out CERN as they move to CERN and a bunch of other labs. They're going to get together and basically reinstate everything that they did with Scientific Linux on Cent. And that's just going to make Cent the distro for any kind of scientific large-scale deployment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just the distro to go to.
Yeah.
That's a bit sad, but I mean, it's you're still going to benefit with that lot throwing their weight behind Cent too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll include all their innovation from Scientific Linux into Cent, and they had a lot of really neat apps for scientific calculation and whatnot in there that weren't in any other distro. So that's cool.
As long as it runs GNOME.
Yes.
It runs the GNOME Classic desktop, which is not the GNOME shell. It's the like the GTK3 based. Yeah.
Aw, and thank you
I
to
don't
Arthur.
hate Cent.
Yep. Thank you, Arthur, and threw that into the show notes.
Yes.
That was awesome. Good news, everyone. Finally, this is like for reals this time. We're not joking.
Yes.
This is not a tease. This is not coming soon. This is getting
Yes.
live. 19.04. Yeah, let's go with that.
Yes.
We'll roll with it.
Yeah.
Because this is the refactored, the long edition, concluding a 3-year cycle. 60% of the code base changed. 144,000 lines of code added and 74,000 lines of code removed. This is a big update. I mean, whoa, man, your page is
Yeah, no, that is a jank when you scroll down.
Yeah, it was really,
But, I mean, the timeline, supposedly a lot faster. A lot of work's been done on that. Downloaded the app image, tried it. For everything that we do, seemed to work. It was fine. No, I personally, the way it does the mixture split fuse with the audio and stuff, like, that's confusing at first. But you can disable it. Keyboard navigation in there, waveform editing, improved keyframe handling, audio recording, which I can't speak to because I don't use my video editor to record audio, nor should you, and a gang of other improvements. However, with something refactoring of this scale, there are going to be new issues. So it's good to go test it, try it out. Like I said,
Yes.
there's an app image. You don't even have to worry
Mhm.
about updating a PPA or installing it or building it from source. Just run the app image, try it out, and report any bugs that you find. Really, the only thing I'm waiting on from the KDN Live team, I know it's not even necessarily a KDN Live issue, is some type of hardware acceleration for the effects and rendering, some GUID
Yes.
acceleration desperately. And I know it's like, that's an issue with MLT. I'm like, yeah, you're right, but still,
Yeah.
because we are doing everything with a 12 core, 24 thread box, but I'd like to be able to do that like half
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
Eventually, I know that's something that's planned for the future, but I would be remiss if I said grr. But excellent work, team. Excellent
Excellent
work.
work. Yeah, and we really do need that GPU acceleration. That would help tremendously. And yeah, as Ven was saying, video clips now use separate tracks for audio video by default instead of needing to be split in the timeline. This is actually really huge, and this is industry standard. It always annoyed me when I'd move my tracks over to Kden Live and I'd have to split them manually. That was always a pain. And now video and audio tracks can be resized in the timeline as well. And there's also keyboard navigation in the timeline. And with keyframe movement, you can use the arrow keys to move the keys around. And these are, default workflow for the proprietary video editors, ones that run Linux and ones that don't. So this is standard with Premiere and Final Cut and DaVinci Resolve. So this is really awesome for professionals moving over to Kden Live, to getting those tools they're used to using in Kden Live. Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting. Good work.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Pedro, do you know how to non-linear video edit, bro?
I can BS my way through editing a couple of clips together and adding some random license-free music to it for people's projects. I have done that in the past.
Pedro,
I haven't used KDE.
Yeah, you using KDN Live is about equivalent of me trying to use DaVinci Resolve. It's entertaining.
I mostly just, because OpenShot, if it's a simple project like what I just described, OpenShot actually does a pretty good job, and it's all there, so you can just line things up, done, check out, does this look good? Yes, render it out, done.
All right, we got to talk about this. We talk about this about every 6 months, but you need to be reminded.
Yes,
because
definitely.
I get it. I feel you. But Linux performance, why you should almost always add swap space. This comes from haydenjames.io. Everything we've talked about will be in the show notes on the site. Go check that out. But, you're going to think, back in the day, it was definitely considered good hygiene to have like at least 2 times more swap than you had RAM. Then again, we're talking about back in the day where a big honking system was rocking like a whole gig of RAM. And even today, I keep about 32 gigs of RAM around, but I get like a 2 gig swap. It's my just in case, because we're talking about KDN Live. I absolutely watched KDN Live choose 16 plus gigabytes while editing UHD video on more than one occasion. I got a little handy command in there if you want to see what's chewing up all of your memory RAM on your system. Like I said, go check that out in the show notes. But swap space versus no swap space when available memory is low. Jill, let's rap about it, because Linux is built from the ground up to kind of expect what the kernel is, a little bit of swappiness.
Yeah, exactly. So Hayden James, he had a really good quote in here in the article. Even if there's still available RAM, the Linux kernel will move memory pages, which are hardly ever used, into swap space. So, that right there is important, especially when you're working with large files. And the amount of swap space you need to allocate is greatly dependent on the memory usage of the applications you are running. It's not just about memory. It's about how much memory your particular applications use. So, and the ones that, you want to enhance them for the apps that you're using, your swap space. So my workstations and servers that I render animation on have a much larger swap space than computers I just use for daily tasks. In fact, I've been known. I have 50 gigs of swap space on my Blender, one of my Blender render workstations, and sometimes that isn't enough. So, but for daily
Although,
use,
if
I
you
would
are
just,
hitting
you know,
swap at that point, that render is going to take about 100 times as long.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
for-
that is, but the projects are sometimes literally so many gigs large
Yeah.
that you have to have a huge swap space.
And for regular desktop use, yeah, you can probably get by with like half your RAM, or as the article and Jill pointed out, as the article mentions, you should have whichever application you have that runs most often, that uses the most memory. That's how big your swap should be. Like, say,
Yes.
there's that game that you turn your computer on to play, and you've caught it using like 10 gigs of RAM. That's the size of your swap right there. Because if it is using those 10 gigs, then chances are there's going to be more stuff that while you're playing the game, the system knows, okay, so we're not using that, we're not using that, we're not using that, and it just dumps all of that into swap until you need it again. So, yeah, it just makes sense. And how often the system does that depends on what the swappiness value is that you have set up on your distro. And
Yes.
for my use case, I've found that a swappiness of 1 for just regular desktop gaming use, which is my use case, it's perfect, because it's like, yeah, the stuff that doesn't get used, it gets dumped in a RAM. It's like, okay. And then it doesn't aggressively go and try. It's like, okay, how long have you been idle? How long ago was the last access to this particular memory page? So with SSDs getting cheaper, it's probably recommended that if you say have 16 gigs of RAM, keep 8 gigs of swap. Even if you don't know or aren't paying attention, if you don't know or aren't paying attention to how big those processes are using your memory, let's say a process or a game springs a memory leak, and all of a sudden you hear that hard drive, or you see the little blinky LED go crazy.
Wait a minute, the SSD whisper, you can hear those?
No, the SSDs, I just see like the light go on like constantly. It's like, why is that LED on? Oh, you're
Yes.
swapping, aren't you?
You're
What's that,
swapping.
Lassie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's usually Chrome, because there's a tab there that's just using way too much RAM. It's like, oh, you're swapping now. Why is that? It's usually Chrome that's at fault. And it'll give you that bit of a buffer before you get the out of memory kernel panic.
It will definitely give you
Yes.
that little bit of slowdown before it's too late.
Yeah.
Let's do a science experiment. We all have the show notes open, right? Because one
Yes.
thing I hear more often than not, they're like, well, I got Chrome or I have Firefox open and I've got 3 tabs open and I'm using 14 gigs of RAM. I'm like, something is horribly wrong with your system. Because
Yeah.
currently, right now, we have 2 audio servers up and running. One being Jack. We have a full 18-track DAW, another recording all that. Then we have Audacity. We have another bridge running over to OBS. That's running. That's recording. That's rendering. That's streaming. Then we have show notes over here on a different browser. How much RAM do you think we're using to do all that? Oh, and 3 video encoders. Also relaying video back to 2 different boxes.
Yeah.
About 7 gigs.
Jill, higher or lower?
I
This
was gonna
price is
say,
right.
I was
You're
gonna
like
go
6.9.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was gonna 5 gigs.
5 gigs. What? 8.7.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
8.
Yeah, that was higher than the encoders, right?
Yeah, you got the encoders, so yeah.
How much?
Yeah,
are you
because
using
right now, on this end, running, not even a third of that, I'm hitting 4.8.
4.8. Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds about right.
Yeah.
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 It's because I often joke, and I'll say this is like half a joke. I'm like, I'm out of memory. Like, how many tabs do you have open? Because you almost
Yes.
almost, there's always exceptions to the rule. That's somebody who uses tabs as bookmarks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that.
I
yes.
have a couple of pinned tabs in Firefox, to be fair. There's like 5 tabs that are always loaded, and then I just open more.
But you know the ones I'm talking about, where you get it's just there are tabs in there that have
Yes.
not been opened in years.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's probably true too. So that'll definitely do it. But yeah, swap. Come on. Don't be too proud. Keep a little bit. It'll save
Oh,
you.
yes.
That one time
Oh,
it
yes.
does, it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about a box.
Yeah, it's a teeny tiny little box that it caught my eye because it is an ARM board, a very simple ARM board that comes. You can buy it preloaded with a 32 gigabyte SD card with the Freedom Box operating system installed. And what Freedom Box does, it basically lets you set up a home server for file sharing, media sharing, for really anything that you can think of for a home server. It's a very simple, very basic pre-built box that you can just plug into Ethernet, plug into power, and plug a couple of USB external hard drives to it, and away we go, because it gives you a little web interface that's it makes setting up very easy. And I was looking through this, it's like, okay, so Raspberry Pi sized box with a couple of USB ports and an Ethernet connection. 82 euros seems a bit much, especially when you take into consideration that the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, it's 35 euros, and you can, well, out of that, you get 4 USB ports and a quad-core ARM 64-bit SoC. So what you're paying extra here is actually for not having to do the work to set the server yourself, because it's already set. You just have to specify whatever you need it to do. And I guess, how much do you value your time? Because it'll save you a lot of time, but it'll cost a bit extra. Yeah.
It is a bit on the pricey side, but a lot of boutique stuff like that is. I mean, that's going to be a smaller run.
It is, and it makes sense. It's like, okay, so it's something that you just want to set up a server for someone, and it's like, okay, you give me like the 82 euros that it costs.
€82, wow.
And I will set that up for you. I'll literally go into your place, plug it in, and ask you a couple of questions as I run through the web interface. There, done.
Sweet. All right,
Yeah.
let's get into a slice of pie. Before we do that, to pay the bills. Pay the bills. I like that. To pay the bills. Easiest way you can help us do that, keep this ad-free and independent, loud, live, and screaming, is to become a Patreon. We want to thank all of our Patreons, all 121, kicking us $288 a week. That allows us to do almost an entire week's worth of streaming. Starting out with Pedro, what did you bring up yesterday? Some Proton Heresy.
Yes, it was Dragon's Dogma, Dark Arisen,
Yeah,
which I was fighting with until the very last moment, but it worked. No crashing
it
either.
worked good.
Yeah, good time with that. We get to do this show on Wednesday and invite all of you to come show up with that business. Thursday, Jordan does his Canadian thing. It's terrifying. Friday, I bring out the food bar. I try to get everybody together, and we have open game night, and Saturday's our big show. The thing that started it all, Linux Gamecast Weekly, which is our 4-hour rock block of nightmares and trains, not necessarily in that order. But as a Patreon, you do get access to our Discord. That's where we hang out the other 6 days of the week. Come in there, say hi. If you're a patron, just hook that up. Like, hello. And I'll be like, hello. Mention Pedro. You don't even have to add him because he'll just pop up. That's how I get him sometimes. I'll be like, yeah, man, I just got home. Pedro. Pedro, like, what?
You could usually tell when I just got home because I start replying to the random stuff that people say on Discord.
That's what his whiskers are for, man. It senses when people are talking about him on Discord. Jill's in there with a gang of other people. We get about 90 people hanging out, and you'll get access to the audio-only feeds for our shows that we do live. It's kind of awesome. I want to thank everybody for that. We also have a wish list, PayPal, all that other fun stuff at linuxgamecast.com. But Patreon is the thing that has made it possible to this level at this point. So thanks again for that. And thanks for listening to this commercial that didn't involve mattresses.
Yes.
Pie time.
Or, you know,
Ooh,
building
cherry
kids
pie.
for building toys for kids.
Oh, great. Cherry pie. Now we're going to have that 80s songs. You're welcome, everyone.
Aw. Well, this is a really cool utility for your Raspberry Pis. This is RPI/Hunter. And this utility allows you to find Raspberry Pis on a network and update them or upload payloads over SSH. This, of course, can be used for good or evil. And make sure to change your root password on the Raspberry Pi. I do that with everyone that I have because this software can go out and just automatically detect the default Raspbian root and disable your Pi or put malicious software on there. And so it can be used for evil. But if you change those passwords,
and it's not just in a given network. It actually, if you plug this into the internet, it goes, oh, look at the internet. Let's start poking SSH ports here and there. It's like, ooh, there's one. Oh, look, it's the default password. Now you have control of a remote Pi somewhere around the world. And yeah, the moral of this story is always change the default credentials on your Pi. It's not hard to do. Come on.
Yes.
It's a terrifying thing that a lot of people don't think about. You know, you think about how internet connected devices you have, and even think about the ones that you don't really have control over. You don't even know what the default remote into that. This reminds me of, dude, I think it was last year, year before that, who created a botnet using printers. All the
printers, smart
lasers.
fridges, smart microwaves, basically electrical appliances that people don't really know that
he did it as
they
a
have
small
a running
research
SSH
project,
server.
but he effectively came back after the weekend. He was like, "Oh no!"
Yeah.
Oh man! All right, keep your pie sanitary. Don't have dirty pie.
And if you'd like to do something new with your Pi, maybe you want to learn a little bit of programming. That we've seen a lot of stories about people learning to program with their Pis. And, well, when it comes to books and documentation on how to...
Mr. Segway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, very good, Pedro.
That wasn't condescending at all.
It's the only way I know to show affection and caring.
But yeah, it's. I wish I'd had something like what Simon Long is posting about in this particular article back when I was going through university and learning C specifically, because he explains that as he was learning, there was like that one book that Dennis Ritchie was one of the co-authors. And that was it. That was basically it. And if you wanted a really good explanation, he actually recommended the Microsoft See for Yourself. But you can't find that anywhere. It's not even on eBay. I looked. It's actually very hard to find. So he's going to get together with some people and actually write an introduction to C and GUI programming. And he's going to do it for complete beginners, like people who never coded a single line in their life. Is just going to put it out there and say, this is the book that you should be using. And it is C, so, you know, just basic programming. And GUI programming, which apparently Ven took a bit of an issue to.
First off, I would just like to say, you know, C's basically assembly with like sparkles and racing stripes. But yeah, this is based on GTK2, not GTK3. And you know, I could say, okay, GTK2 is no longer a moving target. Okay, fair enough. But in the same sentence, I'm like, GTK4 is about to come out. I mean, unless you want to get into XFCE development, shots fired.
It's just Vala, which is based on GTK2. It's C with GTK2. Yeah.
This is a good thing to play around with. I mean, get your beak wet, get a little taste, and see if it's your thing. You know, there's nothing wrong with it, but I did want to bring that up.
Aw.
Jill?
Well, I actually remember what was really cool was, and I was remembering, KNR is what introduced Hello World to the programming ethos. I mean, it came because of that book, that simple statement that all coding languages use when you're learning how to use it. So, and I remember learning C in middle school in the early 80s. it was a PDP 11 or something like that. Actually, it was something a little newer, but that was one of the languages I learned in junior high.
What, did you have to feed that thing punch cards uphill both
Yeah.
ways in snow?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always
Yeah.
fun. My mom will like throw down on me every now and then. She's like, yes, I use punch cards on an IBM whatever.
Yes.
Was what she learned to code on. She's like, it's me tic-tac-toe. And I was like, all right, I get it. Fine, I'll get off your lawn.
Lawn,
Jeez,
I'm off
right.
it now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to do it. We get a little bit of feedback though, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
we do.
yeah.
Actually, a significant amount of feedback.
Uh-huh.
All right.
And if you'd like to contribute and let us know, maybe even add to the feedback that we got this week, or if you have something that you'd like to see featured on the show, let us know. Make sure to pick Lwdw after you go to losegamecast.com and hit the contact button, and then just fill out the form. It doesn't even ask for a CAPTCHA anymore. You just need to let us know what you want us to know. Or, make fun of us. But I guess if you're going to do that, just send some hate mail to Linux Gamecast Weekly. We like that. So, Jill,
Make
why
sure
don't you
it's
take
extra
this first
condescending,
one?
just for me.
Yes.
Aw. Well, this comes to us from Nemor DeKresny in chat. And he says, I happened to search vector in Discovery and got more than your usual suspects. Inkscape, Carbon, Synfig. This time I got Gravit Designer. When you mentioned Akira, who claimed in the Kickstarter that it was an interface design tool for GNOME that wasn't, a UI kit like Glade, it seems this also fits the bill. I was just looking for a vector tool that wasn't Inkscape. I'll tell you how it is after I've used it for a while. And actually Gravit Designer is a really good one. It is a payware, but it's not very expensive, and it is cross-platform, and you can also use it on the internet or download it for every operating system, which is really awesome. And we've talked about raster online photo editing and creation apps, but not vector.
Mhm.
And there are quite a few new ones.
Vector is definitely a thing. Things I've played around with, like Inkscape. But here's how I feel about Inkscape. It's definitely one of those things of, I had to learn how to use that nightmare, and you do too.
So you should too. Yeah.
You will suffer along with me. But I know some people are definitely of the school of like, wow, it's commercial and paid. I'm like, it's on Linux though. I mean, I was like, hey, are you as a company going to release something for the operating system? Okay, I will support you. That's how I will give you your donation. So I'm not diametrically opposed to any of that.
Yeah.
No, and we've mentioned that when we mentioned Akira, it was as a not something like GTK or Qt, but just something that would let you design the elements that would go into a shell.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of an update from Nemo, so stick around.
Yes. Yes.
Just after the jump, we'll get back to this.
I apologize. It would have been a lot more funny if you'd left that out, but spoilers. Jacob, right? Speed. Is there any? Is there an easy? Well, I guess that's right. An easy way to get governors for regular use and gaming. To set governors. Pedro, there is one for Feral, correct?
Yeah, Feral created game mode specifically for that.
I wanted to double check on that. I never, like for the past, since forever, like the 8150, I just ran that 4.5 gigahertz. The 1700 I ran at 3.7 all out. And it's like, governors, no one needs no stinking governors. I didn't look into governors until I got this Threadripper. I was like, man, you know what? I'd like to be able to afford a cup of coffee at the end of the month. Maybe I don't. So upon thinking that, I didn't. There's a couple ways to do it. The easiest way to do it, and give a check in the show notes if you're like wondering, like how to use it. You can use this kernel tools package. It's going to be available with everything. Cloud tools, CPU power. You can use the frequency set and put it on performance or on demand. And I did find a script which basically is just going to do this for you. And
Nice.
it's really easy to the point of put it in. It's a shell script. All you do is double click on it. give them root digits, and it'll flip it. Give it them root digits again, and it'll flop it. That's all there is to it.
Nice.
You could read it. I mean, it's one of the rare times it was like, hey, I didn't reinvent that wheel. Good old man. You actually looked something up on the internet without wasting an afternoon.
Yes.
You can get fancy with it, and you can actually set that script that Ven linked to basically grep for game processes. You'll probably have to manually specify those unless you use something like Feral that already has a list of them, or you just call them before you run the game. You put it in the launch options in Steam, and it'll change governor as you're playing, and then as you exit, it'll set the governor back.
Yes.
You can also work around it and not have to put in the root digits if you give that specific script permissions to run without the root password. And it'll just run and then run itself again once the game exits. But yeah, no, Feral's implementation is actually not bad. I use a similar one, but on laptops to switch whenever they're on AC power, they run in performance, and whenever they're on battery, they run in power save. So yeah.
Nice.
The well, actually, part of me is just going to let you have that one.
Okay.
Aww.
Your laptop never runs on AC power, Pedro.
They do around here.
No, they don't. They charge on it. That's why they have an inverter. All the electronics are on DC. Like I said,
it sees the AC power
Pedro,
plugged
I'm
in.
just getting you back, all right? I know full well what you meant. So did everyone else. But so to close everything off, hey, man. Well, that was short. This is Nemo on his vector experiment. Which
Joe?
you have selected in the show notes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Well, that was short. It wasn't open source, and the trial version didn't work on Fedora as an app image, at least. So I didn't get much use out of it. It looked cool, though. Yes, Nemo, and there was the rub. Yeah, a lot of the online ones are payware, but the demo app image worked for me on Ubuntu, and it does actually work very well in web browsers as well. But there's also, there are two free ones that I knew about. One is called Vector, VECTR, and this is all in the show notes, and one is Fat Paint. And those were some of the more sophisticated vector image editors that were.
Can you even get away with calling a program Fat Paint in 2019?
Yeah, I know. Well,
there's a
Fat Paint's-
graphics editor called GIMP.
Yes,
Seriously.
Well, Fat Paint
And I
does
treat
both.
it like one. What's your issue here, man?
Fat Paint does both vector and raster, so that is cool.
Right. It's good to know. It was a very short journey. I was like, nope, everything sucks. The world's horrible. All's normal.
Although it's an app image, so you could probably just run that through the terminal and figure out why it wasn't working.
Well, hey, man, there's something
Yeah.
to try. Let us know if that works. It's going to be brilliant. But we have to get out of here, but we'll be back next week. Before we go, let's roll some credits and thank everybody for making this possible. Let's see. Is this going to work? Yeah, maybe. Can I get to a tab?
Let's see.
Click.
Yay!
There it is.
Yay! Awesome. Thank you, Ben Stone.
Thank yourself, Joe.
And thank you, Pedro Mateus.
Thank you, other
And
Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh,
And Shotwell Dynamic.
Yeah, dynamic.
Joining us live are Theron, Foxy, Andrew,
Yes.
Andrew, Atomic, Mike, Barbara, and Drummer 7, Aldius, Justin, and Hoplo. Got it, Hop. Go memory.
yes.
Reading 3 lines ahead. Yes.
Yes. Thank you to our beautiful producers and executive producers. And get upset at Jill for closing a tab. That's what happened.
Yeah, we saw the tabs flashing in your face. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look at all the color changes.
Yeah. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
What, did you have to regenerate or something?
Yeah.
All right.
If I giggle, it's not dead air then, huh, Patrick?
Yeah, it is, because I slammed that mute button.
Yeah.
It's
So
just a general mute button.
Yeah.
It's muscle memory, man. What was that, Mir? You had 8 gigs in a task manager or something?
In the XFC panel plugin for the sensors.
Surprised your keyboard didn't tell you that. Wow.
Yeah, no. What kind of sensors do you have going on that the plugin would take up 8 gigs? I mean, it could be holding on to 8 gigs as like reserve memory for something, but even then.
No, go ahead and copy pasta what I put in the notes. That will straight up show you what is active at that moment, not what it's put aside for resident.
Yeah. Let's see. PSOX right there. Marp. So the thing that's using the most is Firefox.
Huh.
658 megabytes.
I gotta take the Pepsi challenge. Where's that?
And Discord, you know,
Yeah,
just the one
Discord's always up
Discord.
there.
432 megabytes. It's using more than Steam.
I know I posted it. Boop.
Let's see.
Yeah, on mine, Discord is definitely using the most. I don't have Firefox open.
You mean
But
the
it-
Discord browser, the Electron?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It's like the one Steam thread that's using the most is the client itself, and it's 282 megabytes. And right
Yeah.
below that is another Discord.
Yes. Instance.
Reigning champion on this end is OBS. Xorg, Discord, yep. Adore, Vivaldi, Chrome, Discord again,
Yeah.
Audacity, desktop, more Chrome, more Vivaldi.
And let's see, Plasma. There we go. Plasma Shell is using 111.742 megabytes.
Oh,
That's nothing.
that is nothing. That's yeah.
It's not too bad. I mean, that's more than the entirety of XFCE, but yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Oh, there is a Chrome process here using 240 megabytes. Oh, it's Jitsi. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These, what are they? Two core 4 thread. These Opteron, these i3s. That's what they can run. That's it. They have
Yep.
2 gigs of RAM. They can run 1 tab with Jitsi, and they're on full tilt. Man, I'm waiting for X12.
But Waylon.
Oh, you just saying give it one more decade, right? Just one more decade.
I'm just saying, with KDE merging the EGL patches, they got one.
Yeah, that's also being totally reliant on NVIDIA to keep that up, too.
Yes, they got one.
So my Flexbox is using 128 megs. Not bad.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, no, that's 111 just for Plasma Shell. And then you have all the frameworks stuff that use like 50, 60 megs each. And there's a bunch of them.
See, I genuinely, I'm not saying this for any other, honestly, I consider like XFCE chunky. Compared to Enlightenment or Fluxbox.
Oh, yeah.
Fluxbox, OpenBox on the E6400. On a cold boot, it's like, oh, 80 megs. I'm using 80 megs of RAM. Nice.
I really liked E22 Enlightenment, but it's not stable.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of Enlightenment. It fits in that in-between, you know,
Yeah, not
window
working to
management
crashes.
anywhere in my house.
and an X desktop. Yeah. But I still have E17 installed on a couple of the old machines. It runs beautifully. But yeah, it's always been a little bit unstable.
I'm sure for desktop use, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, you just want to use it on your studio. You tried.
I did. Also, we just recorded all that without a low latency kernel.
Ah.
Had a gang of extra
Extra
runs.
cores.
No, that doesn't matter how many cores you're throwing at it. Real-time priority. More cores, more problems when it comes to Jack. A lot of people will get old. And it has nothing to do with speed, like the actual clock cycle. As long as you got like over a gigahertz. But you want a dedicated box to do it. You don't want to like run things like OAS or anything.
You want the separate boxes to feed everything into the streaming box.
If you want a dedicated audio box, which that's never going to happen, that is way too much effort. One thing everyone should install, though, is RTIRQ.
Managing the interrupts.
Yeah.
If you're concerned about your mad games, brah, and your input, brah, is RTIRQ. You can set it an easy file to give like USB priority over just your standard PS2, over your network, over your sound. More importantly, you can put FireWire at the front of that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I haven't had to mess with interrupts since
Then
a long time
98
ago.
days. Yeah. That has. I actually have a little bit more when I'm doing rendering, you know, to optimize my boxes, but not on my regular desktops.
I remember fine-tuning the Asus EEE netbook.
Oh,
and
yes.
part of the fun of it was because that's what Fuduntu was originally targeted at. It's netbooks. Really light on resources based on Fedora
So
14.
that's what's responsible for killing netbooks.
The netbooks died before Fuduntu did.
Oh man, it was
yeah.
a joint mission.
Aww.
Fuduntu pulled the plug at the start of 2014. The netbooks had been dead since like 2012. They had a good 3 years. Well, 5 if you count the 2007 that some people would claim were like the golden days of netbooks with the
No.
7-inch Asus one.
Hey man,
Yeah.
the only reason I bought that is because before netbooks actually became a product, Mike Arrington, was going to release the Crunch Pad,
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember that.
which was the device we all wanted. This is before
Yeah.
smartphones. It was just a 6-inch display with touch that had a web browser. That was all it
Yeah.
did. Had
Yeah.
Wi-Fi. It was like, yes, that is the device everyone wants. And some companies screwed them over, and they ended up like trying to make it. No one wanted it by then. And then the Triple E came out, and I'm like, that's good enough. I'll take that.
Yeah, Xandros. Proprietary Linux.
Xandros.
Hey
Yeah, I
man, it
still
was
have it.
Linux.
Yeah.
Then Microsoft's like, we can put Windows on a netbook.
Oh,
Like
God.
technically you
Oh,
can, man.
Lord. That was
It's
a whole...
like, yeah, wasn't Windows XP supposed to be dead by now, Microsoft? Shut up! Windows
Yes.
XP, 32-bit.
You know, if they put Windows XP embedded, is tolerable. I wouldn't use it as desktop, but as far as like if you get to deal with Microsoft embedded anything, that's doable. But that's not what they used as the equivalent
Yeah.
of like them trying to shoehorn Windows 8 on x86 tablets. Yeah,
Yep.
boots. Can't do anything with it. but-
Yeah. Yeah, I still have actually an original install of Xandros on the very first IEEE, and then I have actually I copied it to an SD card and then installed Linux on the main drive, so I could dual boot. Because Xandros had some really cool things. It was because it was made for the small screen.
Yeah.
It was easy to read and.
I was a part of
Yeah.
the Triple E user forums. There was like an
Oh,
official
okay.
forum. And it had like all of them, and it had like different forum sections for people trying out BSD and other operating systems and Hackintoshing the little netbooks and everything else. And I remember there was a thread on like the general Linux section of the forum that was like how to upgrade Xandros to, I can't remember which version of Ubuntu was at the time. I think it was like 10.04 or something.
Yes. Sounds
And
right.
it's like, you have to change this, edit this file, this file, this file, this file, then
You
download
just-
these, drop them here, and here,
Oh, yeah.
reboot.
There's something to be said about a project that you know is going to kill an afternoon, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I still have my OLPC.
Oh yeah, I still have. I've got two different versions. The original. I don't have the hand crank, but I do have one that.
No, mine
does
didn't have
that.
a crank on it. I bought, it was like $200. You got one and they donated one.
Yeah, that's cool.
I never used it. It was like, oh, it's neat, support a thing. It was a great idea.
Yeah, it's amazing. They make now. They're using a tablet. And they've been at scale every year since the beginning, and it's been interesting to see their, evolving and now using a tablet interface.
Oh, speaking of weird ones, there was a laptop that came out, I don't know if they actually made it, which had a solar panel on the top of the lid, and it had two more solar panels that you'd slide out from between the lid and the screen.
Neat.
So it could basically charge itself and keep itself powered through the solar panel. And they said it was going to be like targeted at rough environments and being used where electricity is spotty. And I don't know if they actually released it or if they ever did anything with it, but I haven't heard. It's like Solaire,
Yeah, it sounds
like
familiar,
with
but I
two
can't remember.
A's.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds familiar.
There we go. Engadget has a article 2 weeks with Sol's solar powered laptop. Yep, that's the one.
Cool.
It looks absolutely insane. Oh, Engadget, those image links? No. Just no.
Yeah.
Oh, they really don't want to let you download that image at all. Okay. Well, here's the link to the article.
Aw,
Soul.
that's
what-
cool. Cool.
were called.
Pedro, were you working on getting Fidentu on the EPC at the time?
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
that was
why I joined
later.
the team. Yeah. It's basically getting the best performance, the best battery life, specifically on the Triple E PCs.
Cool.
Because everyone was trying different distros and everything.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that Andrew Wyatt, Foot, the project leader, was doing. He had created Jupiter, which was a teeny tiny little sort of like CPU frequency plugin that you have for panels nowadays. But it could actually engage with the super hybrid engine that the Triple E PCs had. So you could go into super performance mode, as Asus called it, while in a distro without Jupiter, you couldn't actually access that because there were no Linux drivers for it. So the kernel wouldn't even know that it was there. And it worked really well, and it got... we got close, very, very close to the advertised power consumption that people were seeing
Did
on
on
like
Windows.
Windows XP.
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually compiled my own distro on an EPC. I called it Gilix when I was done. I still have it.
Well, Strider, I haven't met your mom, but I can safely say that you take after her because she's wrong.
I was going to say, to qualify that statement, that was the person that taught you English. Just say.
My English is passable. I get people at work when they talk to me. It's like, that's a very interesting accent. Where from in the U.S. are you? It's like,
TV.
I'm not.
No, you're from TV.
Yeah, it's TV, video games, movies, media consumption without subtitles and having to learn. I remember being really, really young, and this was before Cartoon Network had like a Portuguese version. So everything was in English. There were no subtitles. And I'd watch it. I'd just sit there and watch. I couldn't understand what the hell was going on. But I saw that I heard the characters talking, and I saw what happened, and my brain started to piece it together.
Very cool. That was a good way to do it, Pedro.
I
didn't have a
basically
choice.
always got the highest grades in English out of my class because, yeah.
Did they not teach English in Portugal?
It wasn't like a curriculum thing until 1997, 1998.
Oh.
We had... Yeah. I mean, I remember taking, but I mean, it wasn't like serious English. It was like, this is a cat, this is
Yeah,
a dog type
the
thing.
really basic English.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember taking
Yeah.
basic English, like we get like 7, 5, 7, something like that. But oh,
Yeah, no, it wasn't until 5th grade that English like became a thing, at least for my class. And it's like, yeah, I always got the highest grades because it's like, oh yeah, I know that.
Jimbo game.
And I got into a bit of a spat in secondary school with my English teacher because I'm sure the time that she spent here in England and in the US taught her a great deal, but she could not for the life of her speak English worth a damn. And I kept pointing out her mistakes, and so she took it out on me because whenever I
would
got
too.
something wrong
If I was trying to
in a
teach a class
test.
and I had to deal with Pedro, well, actually Mateus.
Aw.
Yeah, no, she took it out on me because in tests, and I actually got access to one of my colleagues' tests to confirm, while they would get like half, if they got like a couple of spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes, they would like get like half of that question's score. And if I made a single spelling mistake in any of the answers, I would get completely deducted everything.
I'm
Oh.
quickly falling in love with this teacher.
So yeah, no, there were classes that, admittedly, when I realized that, there were classes that I made it a point of pointing out everything that she did wrong. It's like, okay, so you're just going to fuck with me? Fine.
I don't know, man. With English, my spelling's always been rubbish. My grammar is atrocious. It's gotten better
Yeah.
later in life, but it's still hit or miss. And Google, thank you. I don't know how to spell in English anymore at all, period. Like,
Praise the red squiggly.
dude, you ever have to type, like, if you're typing something in, like, you know, Vim or something like that, and you're writing documentation, you're like, how's that word spelled? Where's my
That's
squiggly
not
mark?
how you spell it. Hold on. Phone. Okay.
I only know how to spell that word to make it pick up the right word.
Yeah. No, actually, my my grammar and my spelling were always all right. But yeah, it was always mostly my speaking ability, because I didn't really have a reason to speak English in Portugal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't until I started doing LGC that I actually got to put that to the
Got
test.
to learn. That's awesome. Yeah, I grew up 50-50 here and in Mexico. So, you know, there they wanted us to speak English around them so they could learn English. But I did learn how to read in Spanish. And,
I'm glad you finished that sentence.
But actually, yeah, so I was moved from the second grade to the sixth grade in reading and writing. So I was kind of ahead of the other students.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got to junior high, I was bored because I had already done all of the work. So, but with me, I had dyslexia of hearing. So speaking was more of an issue when I was a little kid.
I saw that katana.
But I was already doing research papers like in second and third grade. Like,
Yeah, there is one major difference between like Portuguese and English, and that shows a lot, especially Jordan was very keen to point this out, that I
Okay.
tend to tack on sentences with just commas, because in Portuguese, a sentence would make perfect sense if you just have that comma in the middle there and you
Oh,
go into
yeah.
the second bit. And in English,
Yeah.
that's kind of a no-no, because run-on sentences are kind of a no-no.
The thing I've learned
Yeah.
about English, though, is you can usually discuss your way out of it because no one's really sure.
Yeah, it's,
There's that.
there's a name for it, comma splice, I think it is. And apparently I do that a lot.
Oh,
But is it a
okay.
post-participle participle? Like, just shut up. You're making things up. I'm like, wow, that's real. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, no, Jordan was like, stop comma splicing. It's like, comma splicing? What's it?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the thing.
okay.
Usually like once or twice a week I'll put on Friends Flockat, which is friend. I think it's just French 24, but I can listen to French, which I took enough
Yeah,
French growing
you
up.
took a lot of
but my
French.
brain taps out. I get a headache.
Mm-hmm. I can understand French just fine. I can read French. Great.
Nah.
Speaking it back. Nope.
They remove comma splices. No, all right.
Yeah, no, as it turns out, French and Portuguese, that Latin influence is very much there. And
Portuguese. I went over the language. It just, cause I was like, all right, what's this Portuguese thing about? And because it usually anything with like a Germanic or a Latin, I'm like, I can piece this, but there's definitely like some Slavic or Russian influenced
The
Portuguese.
the way you speak is closer to like Eastern European languages,
Yeah.
more so than like Spanish or Italian.
Right.
If we're talking about like Latin languages specifically, but most of the grammar and everything else is very similar to Spanish. Actually, there was someone who made a YouTube video at one point that compared like the origins of languages, and Portuguese, it's like, yeah, you can see the Spanish here, you can see the French here, you can see the Italian here, you can see, it's like, yeah, that's it.
Italian's its own bag of worms, man.
Hello, Big Daddy Linux. Hello, Rocco.
Sup?
Thank you for joining us.
Welcome back to Vocabulary Cast. After hours.
Yes, in our after show.
Welcome to Linux Semantics Cast.
We just got done doing our main show. But yeah, I find out that I've gotten older. Dyslexia is kind of returning, and it's not good. I'm like, I've been noticing it.
So, everyone, if you want to, I made a like 3 or 4 minute video of everything in a parts list for the Threadripper. I put that up on Patreon if you want to go check that out.
Yes.
It's short and to the point. It's one of my videos. But you can at least go through it and know 100% guaranteed that everything works Linux in that build.
Oh yeah, and one final bit. Compared to Portuguese, English is piss easy.
Well,
Oh yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
English is you don't have masculine and feminine.
You
Yeah.
don't have masculine and feminine, you don't have accented characters,
Yeah,
you don't
no.
have special characters. It's the 26 letters of the alphabet. Neat.
I mean, we have a little bit of that in German with the masculine, but not to the extent of like Spanish or Portuguese.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because every single substantive has
Well, there's
a
even
gender.
verbs, man.
Yeah.
Like what?
And in English, you have 3 verbal tenses. In Portuguese, you have 18 that are most commonly used. If you want to have like all of the composited ones and all the less commonly used nowadays, you have a total of 24 verbal tenses for
Yeah.
each verb. Yeah.
And somebody fluent
It's
in Mandarin
horrible.
is like standing up on the tower looking down at us and like, "Pfft, peasants.
Yeah, and in college, I took several classes as German so that I could read the music I listened to. My Tangerine Dream and the whole krautrock scene. I wanted to learn how to read all of my albums. So, and my teacher was amazed by that. He goes, "You took German just to learn how to read your record albums?" I go, "Yes, thank you, Herr Perry." And I would bring in my albums, and he'd translate some of them for me. And he goes, "This doesn't make any sense." It was...
We get to tell the tales to the children. It's like, back in my day, before universal translators existed.
This is
Yes.
before Google
Yes.
Goggles were a thing. Yes.
But yeah, I'd
German's
always-
a very easy. It's very practical language, and I know a lot of people get intimidated when they look at some of the words, but
No,
it's compound.
Yeah, but if you see it written and you hear someone say, it's like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I spent a week in Hanover, and it was
I will pay money to listen to you read in Spanish. Actually.
That would be cool.
yeah, it's like after a week, I could like look at the subway map. It's like, okay, I need to go there, so I'm here, and I would listen, and I wouldn't need to look at the screen. I could just listen. It's like, okay, this is my stop.
The ability to like Use
Immer
maps,
wieder
man.
auf
I've
und unter.
lost that. I used to be able to like F up a map. I got all
Oh.
around Europe, 100%, no problem. Now, no. Even in
I
here in
still
North America,
have
I had
okay
a
awareness.
road atlas something guide that I bought, and because GPS, I got my first Garmin in like 2005, 2006. It was like $1,000 at a display on it that was that big. But I could put it in the different rental cars, so that was good. It was not accurate.
Yeah,
It-
back
It was a
back in those
proximity
days,
detector.
200 meters was an acceptable error margin.
If you
Massivoni.
could get within, like 2 or 3 kilometers, you'd find a petrol station. Just be like, yo, where's this at? This is a perfectly valid strategy. And be like, oh, that's over here.
I have very good awareness of where I'm going and where I need to go. And usually, if I'm driving, I do it once and it's like, okay, I get it now. This is the thing. And then I can just do it automatically without thinking about it too much.
If I go to a place like that, one of my favorite things to do, I do it every time I put new tires on Turbojetta, is I do one of two things. Either just go do donuts in an industrial park for
Yeah.
like 30 minutes, or I will drive up to the North Mountains and just get lost and give 0 Fs about where I'm at, making turns, just going down roads and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, I have no idea where I'm at. I'm like, boop, all right, let's
Yeah.
go home.
Okay,
True
Google,
that.
take me home.
Yeah, true that, Big Daddy. Proximity detector. Yeah, back then, yeah, definitely.
That was kind of how it was rocking back
Yeah.
in the day.
The irony is I'm the one who's really good with directions and where things are, but I'm the one who's half blind. But I can get anyone anywhere.
But that's the thing, you don't have as much stimulus going on with your eyes, so
Yeah. So I
yeah,
have
you
to
get a better
really
sense
focus.
of direction and everything.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I was Steve's navigator for years. As long as things were close up enough, I was fine. But then Google Maps came along, and the Garmin.
Yeah, the moment smartphones could use the directions thing in Google Maps, it's like, oh, look,
Yeah,
the future
that
is
was
here
awesome.
now. I can go
Yes.
anywhere in the world.
Well, there's that. I remember printing them out, like Yahoo Directions.
Yeah. Oh yeah. MapQuest.
MapQuest, that was the thing.
That was a thing. Yes, used to print all those out before every trip.
That was legit.
Print all the maps.
And there was always a little bit of nervousness with that because you were just jacked up if it was inaccurate. And you're like, great, all right, now I have to stop.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, before that were the Thomas guides, which I loved to decipher. But the problem is the fonts were too small and I couldn't read them. So it was always an issue. Get a big magnifying glass and look.
All right, beautiful people, it's 5 o'clock. We gotta bounce out of here. I gotta
Yeah.
make a show.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta make food.
You gotta make
Yeah.
food?
Time to go get some food.
Yeah.
Are you gonna make food? Are you making food at Pizza Hut tonight?
No, not Pizza Hut.
Cold steak?
I may end up making pizza, but it's going to be homemade.
Microwave?
Just because I got a couple of bases that I can use. So yeah.
Make it in the microwave. Nothing's better than a fresh microwave. Can you microwave? I guess you can microwave pizza. couldn't
You can.
All right.
But I have an oven. I can use an oven.
Aw, hi, Chi. Yeah, I'm going to have one of my Linux Chicks girls come over and we're going to go to the mall and have lunch and just visit. It'll be nice. She was, that's Nicole. She was, one of my favorite people, one of my best friends. And I haven't gotten to see her much because she started a new full-time job, just about.
Right.
Bye.
Chi, thank you, Chi. We
Bye-bye.
love you. Bye, Big Daddy.